you know, physicians, as medical herbalists are in the UK, but physicians are oath-bound to do no harm. And it is a very interesting point. It's always been an interesting point for me that they will say that I cannot prescribe herbs because I genuinely do not know whether or not they will cause harm. And I've come across this argument sometimes from physicians, and yet when you actually look at the data,
all
it
they
really
have to do
is
is look at the data.
Yeah, it is actually quite extraordinary. You know, 100,000 deaths at least per annum from non-error-related prescription drugs in the United States.
And they've
It's a
no problem
massive
prescribing
figure.
those, do
Exactly,
they?
exactly. So I mean, we do have this issue about is this a deliberate? You know, there's simply no training. There's no training in standard practice medicine. I mean, I did a full-on medical student's curriculum. I was taught nothing about nutrition. Now let's take, for example, I mean, nutrition and herbs completely overlap. If a patient comes to their primary care provider and says, "Doc, I'm feeling blue," whatever the reason, could be divorce, could be stress, lost a job, whatever, unemployment, or it may just be good old-fashioned depression for no obvious external reason. And to me, if a doctor does not ask that person, that patient, about their diet, if he doesn't check that diet for a good healthy content of omega-3 essential fatty acids, for example, is this person getting their essential oils, I would say that the doctor is de facto negligent, because these are proven issues in what appears to be depression.
On those omega-3s, and without that the brain can't function, and then you're losing food.
Exactly. So we go back to the modern diet, which is deficient in a lot of essential micronutrients, tends to create an awful lot of problems that are medicated by pharmaceuticals. Now, many doctors...
But isn't that a sly relationship? Let's provide food with the mass food producers industry out there that's deficient, that's overprocessed, that's actually harmful. We talk about the fats that you should be getting and the fats you shouldn't be getting, like all the hydrogenated stuff that's out and everything, the sugar, the artificial sweeteners, all of that. Let's make you sick. Oh, let's have a body over here that has all these expensive high-tech means to make you well. It's too
well, what you're describing is the extraordinary penetration of the kind of corporate industrial complex into our modern lives, and there is actually a really unholy, I think is a good word of describing it, set of connections between the chemical industry that pollutes our environment, that pours carcinogenic compounds into our food chain, into the water, into the air, into the food chain, and so on, into us. And when cancers occur, they also make the toxic chemicals that are used to treat it. So they're on a sort of win-win merry-go-round.
And then they blame it on the gene. Oh no, it can't be the environment or the foods or the lack of nutrition. Oh,
they don't need your gene. Yeah, they don't need to blame it on anything. I mean, this is the point. And I mean, the war against cancer is another great example of the failure of standard practice medicine. And yet herbs are. I mean, here's another great example. We have a recent example. Finally, hormone replacement therapy, particularly estrogen replacement therapy, has finally, at last, been deemed to be actually dangerous. Not only does it not achieve the cardiovascular benefits that it was originally purported to, but it definitely leads to cancer, reproductive cancers.
To the point where they had to stop those major
studies. And it is now finally not being recommended. Now let's look at black cohosh, which is an established... I mean, clinical trials have demonstrated that black cohosh preparations can relieve menopausal symptoms, vasomotor symptoms like hot flashes. Here again, we're seeing a very recent study done by actually a really, in my view, quite highly credentialed group of researchers, clinicians down in LA, who took what are called tumor cell lines. These are immortal cell lines, and they implanted them in mice and gave them black cohosh extract and watched how these tumors did or didn't do, as opposed to mice who had no black cohosh extract. And a small number of the mice developed more lung tumors in the black cohosh group. Now, this kind of study is absolutely fraught with problems of extrapolating to humans. Firstly, mice and women do not have the same reproductive apparatus. They do not have, mice do not have menstrual cycles. I mean, there is very little that's similar between a female mouse and the average two-legged female. And secondly, the problem of cell lines. This has been criticized. Why are we 35 years into cancer research and there is no effective cure of cancer, as we were promised 35 years ago by Nixon? Part of the problem is they look at cell lines. So we have cell lines, we have mice. So the study is hardly interesting at all, and yet it made headlines in the press. Black cohosh is now dangerous and may cause cancer. And to me, this is just
because you have thousands of years of using black cohosh by a number of different societies, all safe, and then here are a couple of
several
flawed
hundred
studies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this brings up another issue. You mentioned natural does not necessarily mean safe. However, the predominance of herbs are safely used, other than the poisonous ones, which we know about. So another myth seems to me that herbs are weak, or that all the herbs are kind of weak and couldn't possibly do a job against cancer. Tell us about that. I mean, if I drink peppermint tea, I'm not going to get a huge effect. I'm going to get a small medicinal effect, as well as it's a great tasting herb. Garlic, very potent. Ginger, if you have a stomachache and you want to kill some bacteria, take some ginger. Artemisinin, a new cancer promise, I'll say, showing some effect on cancer for various reasons. You've been studying that. Very potent.
Potent, yes. Not, again, what is interesting about artemisinin, and perhaps we should say a little bit about what artemisinin is. Artemisinin is actually a single compound derived from a well-known Chinese and Vietnamese, or let's say East Asian herb called sweet Annie, or Artemisia annua. And this in itself is very interesting. It was originally studied as a malaria cure. And we have, not in the United States, but globally, internationally, malaria remains a massive problem, a huge problem causing millions of deaths per annum across the world, particularly child deaths in Africa. And with artemisinin and sweet Annie have been shown and approved by the World Health Organization to be a viable treatment for the drug-resistant malaria. Anyway, cut a long story short, artemisinin came to light in malaria, anti-malarial studies, and serendipitously was found to help with certain cancers, and various groups have studied artemisinin, but there is no pharmaceutical company support for this agent. It cannot be patented, and so we have another fairly classic situation where clinically there are a number of practitioners working with agents, plant agents like artemisinin, in certain cancers, seeing good clinical results, which at this moment in time are very unlikely to go anywhere. The main researchers at the University of Washington on this subject had a huge amount of difficulty getting a single case report of the successful use of artemisinin in a squamous cell cancer, of getting it published at all in any of the mainstream oncology journals.
Referring to Dr. Henry Lai.
Yeah.
They even know the mechanism by which artemisinin can disconnect the cancer functioning dynamics. It goes in there and it disrupts the iron molecule.
It's got multiple
so
mechanisms.
they understand why and how. I guess if you have that particular type of cancer, you can go to East Asia and take malaria medicine form of it. But
well, actually, artemisinin is available. I mean, it's classed as a dietary supplement here. So
is it the same, sweet Annie? Why do they say Chinese, Vietnamese herb? Does the same thing grow here and have the same potency?
It grows really easily. It grows beautifully in southern Oregon, and it's a sweet-smelling flower. It's used for flower arranging a lot. That's why it got its name.
That's why I know it's a benevolent universe, because nature has strewn her cures all over the place. We call them weeds mostly, don't we?
We certainly do. I'd love the example of St. John's wort for that here in Oregon.
Yeah.
Well, the Oregon Department of Agriculture has actually classified St. John's wort as a noxious weed, which means that you have to remove it.
Now, it will just take over?
Yeah, because it grows very...
Not just not to humans, but just it's annoying in the landscape.
Yes, from an agricultural, economic perspective, it's an invasive species, according to the state of Oregon. But of course, Oregon, as is well known, is afflicted with a particularly long, grey, wet winters, and seasonal affective disorder is very prevalent amongst the population here. And St. John's wort is a perfect plant for seasonal affective disorder. Now,
so your point is nature actually puts the herb where you need it.
Well, I could go on in this vein all day.
Tell us some more examples of that.
Well, the one you've got me started now, but the one I like is the humble dandelion. When you look at the sheer amount of tonnage of Roundup and the intense number of person hours spent trying to eradicate dandelions from the lawns of suburban America, one is forced, as a herbalist at least, to ask why does this plant keep persisting in returning? Is it trying to tell us something? And so we look at the uses of the plant, and for obese, constipated, sluggish people, dandelion really is an excellent remedy for cleansing and stimulating the liver and clearing out the system. So
I'm getting the signal that we have to take a break. So we're talking with Johnathan Treasure. We have his website. You can take a look at it. He's at work on a major treatise on all the topics that we'll talk about and more that should be out in 2005. And we'll be back with more with this longtime medical herbalist. I'm Laura Lee.